Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
And I think this leads to a question is, where do we find inspiration for relationships? Where should you be looking? Should you be looking on TikTok at a test and then join the masses of people that seem to think it's a good idea? So I think it's worth just considering, are we in the world? Are we of the world in biblical terms?
You may have heard the titles Millennials, Generation Y, Generation Z. These various age groups are also referred to as digital natives. They have the greatest access to computer technology and smartphones, instant answers through artificial intelligence, and also includes their dating relationships. Joanne Wilson is our guest today. She's a counsellor and neuro-psychotherapist. Today we'll be discussing the trends in some of the areas of concern that may impact relationships in the online TikTok world. That's Joanne Wilson with my wife Kate and myself Brett Ryan for Focus on the Family, Australia. And by the way, we want to thank our friends of Salt for recording Joanne's side of our conversation. Well, welcome back to the program.
What a great topic.
Very controversial.
Well, it is indeed a different world from, meeting somebody at a dance. Some of our listeners would have remembered those moments.
Barn dances.
Yes, or square dancing.
Maybe you met them at a different function, but now...
Youth groups.
Or you may have had the
friends,
experience of having to wait for that person to ring you on the phone. and it was a phone that you didn't just push in the numbers. You had to actually... dial your number. But things are a lot different now. And so I thought it would really be good to have a conversation about some of the things for our parents who are listening to this, because their kids are going to go through this online digital TikTok world, but also some of our younger listeners who are going to say, well, that's where I am at the moment. And so where do we start? What are the trends that are happening in our culture today?
Yes, well, I think it's worth referring to TikTok when we look at trends, where so many of the millennials are spending time having a look at what is normal in a relationship, for example. That's where they're being influenced by these trends that couples are portraying little tests online that they're flicking through, and they become quite the sensation that everyone seems to think that this is the new rule book for how I assess if I'm in a good relationship, for example, or if my partner meets the mark of being the great partner that I deserve. So they
record them, don't they? They record their partner
do.
to either set them up for success or failure. And then according to if they pass or fail, will predetermine whether the relationship will go the extra mile.
It's a lot of pressure.
Pressure is an understatement. It seems, the word I had was intense. Yeah.
Yes. Always on, to me, it seems like they're always on show.
Yeah. You've got these beautiful people all glamoured up, and then they put forward this special hashtag test, and everyone's watching and they can't wait to share it. And I think the poor partners that get involved in this, and I hope they've got permission to
well, it was
spread
quite
it around the world.
I mean, dare I say it, I used the word fun then doing a bit of research for this interview, but I'm thinking there were some positive aspects, but there were some things that weren't that great. For example, the bird test. What's that?
Okay, this one I actually don't mind, to be completely honest. So the bird test is basically the concept where someone, could be male or female, will look out the window and find a bird, and they will say, whoa, look at that bird, and their partner is being assessed at this point as to whether they turn toward and join their partner at that moment to also admire that bird or join in. It doesn't actually even have to be with your partner. You could do this on a friend or whoever, but generally it's based around intimate relationships. Now, the reason I don't mind this is because in Gottman theory, and they are, John and Julie Gottman are prolific researchers in the relationship field in the US, and they do use this term that masters of a relationship, they turn toward their partner over the smallest things. It's just joining them at a moment in time. Now, you might not be interested in that bird, or if, I don't know, your husband, for example, might be admiring this amazing car that's driven past. It's your job to join them and just be with them at that moment. and share. But the disasters, according to the Gottmans, are the ones who ignore that bid for connection, which is what it essentially is in, this example of the bird test. So it's a bid for you to have your partner join you. So that's kind of like, I don't mind the theory behind
being curious.
Look, I like the concept of being present in the moment and connecting with them that way. But you do want to be mindful that they are not in the middle of something. Let's say they're in the middle of banking. They're doing their banking online and you all of a sudden say, look at the bird. I feel like it doesn't set them up for success.
If you're being recorded at that moment, you're setting your partner up for failure, aren't you?
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like it's a little fraught, and so you're being tested on something where you're not actually, you haven't disconnected. Now, I can say this for Brett. If I have not allowed him to disconnect from what he's doing, I set him up for failure.
And I fail numerous times. All right.
No, but the point being is if you are really focused on something, and we do this to our children, by the way, if they're busy playing and we say, come on, we're going.
Yeah, that's not fair.
It isn't. They need time to disconnect and re-engage. And so whilst the test, I understand the background of it and it can be a great idea. Look, let's face it, if you're just walking along holding hands and they're looking somewhere else and you go, oh, look at the bird, and they turn and they look at the bird with you, it's a perfect example. But if they are solidly engaged in something, we do have to be mindful that to disconnect is a process for some.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And I think it's just in Gottman theory, they say it erodes the relationship if you are never, ever joining your partner at that time. That's when they say you're probably likely going to be labelled very confrontingly a disaster couple. So it's just about being mindful that, yes, sometimes you could be engaged in something else, but being also aware to join your partner in something that you might not necessarily be interested in. So there you go. There's the bird test.
There was another test called the orange peel test.
Oh,
and I kid you not, this is real. We're not making this up. This is called an orange peel test. And you can actually Google this.
I'm looking forward to the analogy of what it represents.
Orange peel test. What's that?
Where I might say, I feel like an orange. And husband, would you either get one for me, but even more, could you peel it for me? I don't like getting the orange peels under my fingers, and just could you peel it for me? And the test there is, will they do it or will they not? Now that's pretty rough, I think. Yeah.
What if they've got an aversion to stuff up their fingernails too?
I just think in this day and age, I just think that's ridiculous. Sorry, I'm just going to be rude. That's counsellors don't have an opinion, but I have an opinion on that one.
Fair enough.
I like it.
There was another fun one that has come from, I think, a Netflix series that was about the Beckhams. And there was a little scene there, and it's now known as the Beckham test because David Beckham saw his wife dancing to a particular song and joined in.
Yes, Island in the Stream, a very beautiful love song. Yes, so I'm not sure, Kate, if Brett was to walk into the kitchen, seeing you dance to yourself to Island in the Stream, That Is What We Are by Kenny Loggins, I think it is, do you think he would join you and start dancing with you, or would he just keep walking?
Oh, he'd dance.
That's the test. That's the Beckham test.
He would dance.
Not very well. Not very well.
No, not very well. But nonetheless, I will actually go up to him and we'll dance if there's a beautiful song on.
Love that.
So, yes, I quite like that one.
But then does everyone join in and dance? I don't think that's fair.
Of course not.
But see, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Different temperaments, different personalities. If you've got a really outgoing personality, they probably would just run up and start dancing with you. But if you've got a more reserved individual and they're like, oh, that's so embarrassing, it's not because they don't want to dance with you. They're just more reserved.
Or they could be going to go get their banking password at that time.
I think we can read so much into these things that could be really damaging to a relationship.
And unfortunately, it does place an enormous relationship because they're never too sure if you're going to be filmed and what have you. There was another one that is there's a little bit more controversial, and it's called the strawberry test.
This one's targeted particularly to, will my partner cheat on me? So it's cryptic language that if you say to your partner, if you were walking past a strawberry field, would you take a strawberry and eat it if you were hungry? And so it's asking your partner, well, I don't know, maybe, yeah. And so then they go into that further. So how many strawberries would you eat? And what if there's a fence? And obviously your partner would be very confused by this. But anyway, they persist and say, come on, if you're really hungry, would you jump the fence to go and find a strawberry? And how many would you eat? And so this is code language for would you cheat on me?
Oh, wow.
So I think that's pretty rough because it's got nothing to do with that, nothing to do with the relationship. And I think that's a little bit nasty.
Unrealistic expectations.
And who are the people who are actually devising these tests? This is my question.
Well, they're not scientifically based. Is that what you're referring to?
I think it's aimed at destroying relationships, not at building them.
Yeah.
And I think this leads to a question is where do we find inspiration for relationships? Where should you be looking?
Yeah.
Should you be looking on TikTok at a test and then join the masses of people that seem to think it's a good idea? So I think it's worth just considering, are we in the world? Are we of the world in biblical terms?
Yeah. And I think that we have to be reminded of that great verse where it says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but renew your mind. So it starts with you, and therefore you don't have to go along these trends because obviously the social media apps that you have is you're really comparing and contrasting with others and not really knowing who your identity is. We're living in a perfect world where the images that are portrayed have got beautiful filters on them. They also show exotic things and people feel very dissatisfied with what they have. And unfortunately, this is the pressure our Gen Ys and Gen Zs and our future alphas and our betas that are coming through, they're going to be faced with this. And so I think it's really important that mums and dads have these conversations to know that they are dearly loved for who they are. And also the way that they see the world is not to be put through a filter that the world sees. And it's how God sees them. They are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yes, great point, Brett. And it feels like you're the only one, if you're that parent, that is saying no to something or trying to encourage your children to put that godly filter on what they're watching, what they're copying. It can feel very lonely, and hence having that church community or going to a Christian Facebook group where you can be affirmed in what you believe in so that you don't feel like you're the only one. Because I certainly do sometimes, that's for sure, as a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I think it's important that we know the question is, who are we listening to? What is going in our ear gate and our eye gate? So what are we looking at? What are we listening to? And is it building up? If it's not building up, then it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
The word of God is truth. And if we're not running everything that we look at through the Bible, then we're asking for trouble.
Yeah, very much so.
And we want to see relationships thrive, not be torn down.
Focus what is true and right and holy.
Yeah, pure.
Our guest today is Joanne Wilson, along with my wife Kate, and I'm Brett Ryan, and you're listening to Focus on the Family, Australia.
The Word for Today is Australia's most widely read daily devotional, designed to give you practical teaching to keep you focused on your relationship with Jesus. Read it online or subscribe to the free printed edition at thewordfortoday.com.au.
Welcome back. Our guest today is counsellor and neuro-psychotherapist Joanne Wilson, and you're listening to Focus on the Family, Australia. Now, we spoke before the break about dating trends, and it may be seeming ridiculous to many of our listeners thinking this is the world our young people are growing up in, but that is the fact. And that's the reason why we need to put protections in them. But there are some other trends that, during my research for this discussion, we're talking about some of the other things called like slow dating or micro flirting or contra dating. Have you heard of these, Jo?
Oh, slow dating. I can't wait for this to be a massive trend. The more of that, the better. If couples could slow down that getting to know you process, that would be so wonderful, and allow those foundations to build, to set up a great relationship moving forward into their future. So yes, slow dating builds that strong foundation that is genuine than just jumping into it and then finding out that we're not compatible, but now our lives are intertwined with family and relationship intimacy issues. So it definitely is worth adopting that trend. I'm all for that.
It sort of
one.
emphasizes quality, so the depth and the meaningful conversations you have over the quantity, and in a day and age they talk about swiping, and this is a very common trend. You know, they're looking through just on a two-dimensional image whether you can know this person and attracted to it. So it's very superficial, but it's investing in meaningful conversations to understand what makes them tick.
Well, a lot of the reading that we've been doing lately is around the idea of friendship. And with this slow dating trend is going to be more likely to build friendship if it's talking about deep questions and getting to know the person well. Because the number one, not the number one for Christians, is it's built on God. But in terms of just everyday relationships, is having it based on a deep friendship, because you're going to face a lot of things where, say, sex might not be a part of your relationship if somebody's injured or very ill, that you've got a beautiful friendship that you can rely on whilst you're walking through a season.
And as well is to uncover, are you actually maybe not compatible with this person? And it's okay. Be able to find that out sooner than later than when it's too late and someone's already pregnant or, you know, you've already tied yourself in so many more ways that we have tended to see in society since the 70s, for a long time, I suppose. But if we could just take that slow approach to find out, are we compatible? If not, move on. It's okay.
We often referred to you have to see the 4 seasons, and it doesn't necessarily mean 12 months, but actually the seasons of highs and lows. How do they cope under stress? How do they cope through the good times and the not so good times?
When they play sport.
When they played sport, that's a good one.
Travel. How do you travel together?
The character.
Things not going well.
Well, you want to see their character put under pressure. What does it really look like? And
how do you problem solve together?
They might be young and a bit immature, but you've got to give them a bit of grace there. But getting to see them in all different situations, how they treat their mother, if it's a guy, you know, you want to see that. You want to see that in action.
There was a couple I mentioned before about different ones. Micro-flirting, which is basically just a subtle form of flirting. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But one of the other ones that was interesting was called contra-dating, which means that you're not going through your usual type. Is that healthy or not healthy?
Actually, I'm not averse to that. Look, I'm meant to say, I'm not averse to online swiping. I think if that's how we meet someone, but then if you slow it down after that. So it's okay to find someone online because it's a very common place. But contra-dating, looking for someone who complements you isn't such a bad thing. Like, I think what's truly important are your common core values. How do you approach family life?
Yes.
What is it that you both want to? I talked about a mission statement. You know, what is it that you both stand for as a united force? You know, as a Christian couple, what impact and legacy do you want to leave on impacting generations? And so if that person is completely different to you, it's often a beautiful thing. It can be exciting and wonderful, and you can have different interests. So it's that healthy level of interdependence and independence as well. So, I wouldn't rule that out. Yeah.
We spoke to a couple who they had the books, What Every Woman Should Know, What Every Man Should Know, but they penned in about themselves so that when the man got the book, it was a handbook about that person and reverse. And so they got to know each other that way as well as just talking. So because sometimes you can be a bit more vulnerable when you're not looking at somebody and you're just writing it down. And then it was like that little handbook to go back and say, oh, well, that's maybe commonly what women like, but that's not her.
She loves
this is what she
pricing.
likes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's an extraordinary way to, you know, just have a look at something. It doesn't have to be the norm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Could be almost boring if they do,
exactly.
too much
not
like
robotic.
yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was another one that I thought was interesting. It was called the DBL, the digital body language. And it was actually referring to you can really understand somebody because of the way that they use their texts. Emojis, are they brief or are they not? And unfortunately, our young people can be very superficial in this world. And we as parents who are listening to this is we really need to listen to our teens. We need to really love them and walk alongside them and, help prepare them for the realities of this world. So what would you be saying to a parent right now who's got a teen who's right in this and looking at the world through a digital lens? How can a parent help them?
Well, I think despite the digital trends, I think that parents should be able to still request respect as far as answering in sentences. Even though we're communicating online, it is still what every human deserves, and it's setting them up for success. If they catch an Uber or, they're riding in a car with another parent, I think if you allow your child to text you, Snapchat you with one-word answers or use their phone and not look up, that's a really important skill that they need to learn to communicate with others and to respect that if you're given a lift by somebody, even if you're paying for it, that it is a common courtesy to communicate with them and look them in the eye. So yes, I'm not averse to emojis and communicating that way, but often, yes, things can be misread, misunderstood.
Lost in translation,
online.
we say.
Yes.
Yeah, you can say something and yes, you're right. You might not understand the tone, but if you put a smiley face next to it, that means it's okay. But yeah, I think it's also worth encouraging your teenagers to make sure that they don't lose the skill of face-to-face communication along the way. So meet them where they're at.
We're setting them up for the workforce because the workforce is looking for those who are emotionally intelligent, not just having intelligence, but emotional intelligence. So they are able to communicate with stakeholders, etc. And if we haven't taught them that, then they're really going to struggle.
And also make sure that your teenagers know that your future employers are looking at your digital footprint. So
absolutely.
If you are videoed at a party doing something that you wouldn't want any future employer to see, then maybe have a second think about that one. So
unfortunately, a lot of people, this is adults too, they don't understand that. They don't. And I've said it to people, you shouldn't be putting that kind of stuff on there because your future employers are going to see it. Oh, no, they don't bother looking at that. Well, they really do. Or they delete it. And I said, well, it's not really deleted.
Yes, absolutely. It's the first place I would look as an employer. If I'm going to invest spending wages on someone, if I've got the advantage of extra information, why wouldn't I?
That's right.
With our final few moments, our identity is very much on how many likes we get, on how many people comment. And so many young people, have got certain apps that erase pimples. They can change their figure. They can, make them look more glamorous. And it's not real. It's this virtual world. And so how can we as parents help put our children in a way that says, you are perfect just the way you are. You don't have to perform. We love you. But they're going to say, well, if no one likes me, then my whole identity is enmeshed in this world. How can we help them?
I think identity is a topic that is prevalent in the counselling room because I say, if we took away your fancy car, your amazing job and stripped back everything, what is left? And I think it's where if we're stripped bare of all of the worldliness and materialism, is when it's a beautiful thing to encourage clients or our children to find their identity in Christ and that sense of self-acceptance, that love, that forgiveness, that you are uniquely and miraculously created. And of course, it's tough because as for many parents, we see that in our children and just encourage them to look to Scripture, to surround themselves with people who are like-minded, who are also pursuing Christ-likeness, and that will be, I guess, one move away from being in the world and having to have those filters and find your definition or identity from the number of likes and followers. So, yeah.
Well, that's so good. And hopefully this has been of great benefit to many of our listeners, both young and not so young, in understanding the TikTok online dating world. Thanks, Jo.
My pleasure.
If you'd like to find out more information about Joanne Wilson, you can go to her website at therelationshiprejuvenator.com. That's relationshiprejuvenator.com. And our website has numerous articles and podcasts on dating and also some tips in parenting a millennial or Generation Z child. Our aim is to help you not just survive the parenting years, but to thrive. and all of our resources and pastoral care counselling service is only made possible because of those that have a heart for God-honouring families and have given generously. Please prayerfully consider partnering with us. For more details, including our free family toolkit, you can go to families.org.au. And thanks for joining us today. I invite you to tune in for another edition of Focus on the Family, Australia.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.